Hi everyone, this is Miss Lindsay. Today we're going to do an example where they give us the general form of a conic section, and we're going to write it in the standard form for a hyperbola, state the center, vertices, foci, and asymptotes. So let's go ahead and group together the y values, the x values, and then we'll subtract over 62, which is our constant. And we'll start completing the square for our y values and then our x values. We'll first factor out the 16 from both the y values there. Then we'll factor out again this negative. That's an important step with the hyperbola. Factor out that negative 1. So you'll get x squared minus 2x, and then we'll add that c value in as well. So if we add it to one side, we have to add it to the other side, and don't forget to multiply it. I'm running a little bit out of room there, so make sure you multiply it by that negative 1. You always multiply by the leading coefficient that you factored out. So for the y's, I'll take my b value of 4 divided by 2 and square it, so I'll get that to be 4. For my x, my c value, I'll take my b value of negative 2 divided by 2 and square it, so I'll add 1. Factor on the left hand side, so I get the quantity y plus 2 squared minus the quantity of x minus 1 squared, and then simply multiply and combine like terms here. Again, recalling that we are then multiplying by the 16, the 4 by 16, and the 1 by a negative 1, so that should add all together there, and you get that to be 1. So let's think about the standard form of a hyperbola here. We do need it to equal 1. However, this coefficient of 16 needs to be written in terms of an a squared value underneath the y there. So how can we actually rewrite multiplying by 16? Well, dividing by 1/16 will work. So we're rewriting that first term. The x minus 1 quantity squared would simply be over 1, and that would be equal to 1, and this would be our standard form for our hyperbola. So our center is still going to be hk. So opposite of h, which would be 1, opposite of k, which would be negative 2. And then we can think about our vertices. And again, I always like to actually go ahead and graph that. So if I have the center of 1, negative 2, that would be around about there. And since I know y is first, I know that it's going to stretch, open up and down. So I'm going to take a look at my a squared value here, which I know is 1/16. Take the square root of both sides, so that'd be a 4th. So I'm going to count up a 4th. And this again is very small. So should have made my spacing a little bit wider on those. But again, I do know that it's going to be going up and down. So I'm going to be changing the y value for my vertices here. And I'm going to be adding and subtracting a 4th from negative 2. So I do know it's going to be 1, and then I'm going to take negative 2 and add and subtract a 4, so I'll have negative 9/4, as well as negative 7/4 to come up with my vertices. Foci, now we have to think about c, and we know c squared equals a squared plus b squared in a hyperbola. So c squared equals 1/16 plus 1. So c squared will equal 17 over 16. And if I take the square root of both of those, I'd get square root of 17 over 4. And that's going to give us a decimal, which that's okay in this point in time. But now recall, we're going to take our c value. And again, the foci always fall within the hyperbola, so I'm going to count again up and down. I'm just right now estimating where it would be. I'm going to count up and down from the y value of my center to actually get the order pair of my foci. So my foci will be 1 And again, I'm going to take -2, do plus or minus the square root of 17 over 4. I'll leave that in an exact form. And then last but not least, the asymptote. So we'll have y minus our k value, so we'll plug that in, equals plus or minus slope of x minus h. So again, we're going to write one equation for both of these lines here, both of the asymptote. So in this case, we'll have y plus 2, x minus 1, because we're using our center value here of h and k. Now we got to think about our slope. We'll have plus or minus, and in this case, we always want rise over run. So if we count it up first, that is going to be our a value, which is going to be our vertical count up, over our horizontal, which would be our b value in this case. So it's going to be a over b, so it's going to be 1/4 over 1, which would just simply be a 4th.